If your next Pathfinder character were a chocolate bar, they would immediately be eaten by a monster. But if they somehow managed to survive and level up, archetypes would be their chewy nougat or crunchy Butterfinger filling. Rogue on the outside, divine champion on the inside. So, how exactly do you make one of these deliciously deadly traits? First thing you need to do is to understand what an archetype is. In Pathfinder 2e, an archetype is a combination of P1e's archetypes and multiclassing. You are essentially class-locked in P2e, but you can customize your character with all kinds of special features by swapping out your class feats for archetype feats. You get class feats at level 1, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, etc. The first archetype feat you need to take is the Archetype's dedication feat. As an example, if you want to take the multi-class archetype for Cleric, you'll need to take the Cleric dedication feat, which requires you to have a wisdom score of 14. From there, you can take any feat from the Cleric multi-class archetype that you qualify for when you gain a new class feat. You can even select another dedication feat after you fulfill the requirements of your current dedication feat. Usually this will be taking a certain number of feats in the archetype. Now that you know how archetypes work, let's talk about the different types of archetype. First up, there's multiclassing archetypes. This gives you some class features from a class that's different than yours, such as a wizard taking fighter feats for additional weapon and armor proficiencies, or a rogue taking wizard feats to gain spells and a familiar. You can't take the dedication feat for a class that you're already a member of. Also, some important feats to be aware of for the archetypes from spellcasting classes. These are the basic, expert, and mastery spellcasting feats available at 4th, 12th, and 18th character level. These feats improve your spell attack and DCs, as well as grant you additional spell levels. There are also a number of other archetypes in Pathfinder 2e, many of which are dedicated to locations and organizations in the world of Golarion, such as the Living Monolith. This requires you to speak Ancient Osiren and a Sphinx language. You must also be trained in crafting and be from the Golden Road region. The dedication feat for Living Monolith gives you a Ka stone, which will later become an invested magic item for you. Also, if you fail a recovery check when dying, your dying level does not increase. And if you critically fail your dying check, your dying level only increases by 1. Later, you can take feats such as Stone Blood, this gives you bleeding resistance, or Fortified Flesh, which gives you physical resistance. Another interesting archetype is Rune Scarred. The requirements are to be trained in Arcane and be from the Sage Lands. The dedication feat makes you an expert in Arcane and trained in Thessalonian lore. If you played Rise of the Rune Lords, you know just how fun those guys were. You also get 1 cantrip from the Arcane spell list and a bunch of glowing runes all over your body. Later on, you'll be able to get feats like Spell Runes, which gives you a small number of arcane spells once per day, or Warding Rune. This gives you a +2 stacking bonus against a specific school of magic, other than divination. Finally, some archetypes like Lastwall Sentry or Hell Knight Armiger can open up new archetypes further down the road. In Pathfinder 2, to compensate for the limitation of being class-locked, Paizo has opened up a lot of different opportunities for you as a player to really mold your character using the traits from other classes. This is something that we saw a lot of in the Pathfinder Advanced Class Guide, with things like the hybrid classes and feats which gave you little flavory bits from other classes. Also, if you've read any of the supplemental material for some of the Pathfinder modules, such as Rise of the Rune Lords or Carrion Crown, you'll see that Paizo is really eager to try and tie aspects of the world to your character through mechanical means, such as the region locking they've done behind some of these archetypes. Now, if you're playing in a campaign where the DM has created their own world, or they have diverged greatly from what Paizo has done with Galarian, you can still use a lot of these archetypes or features of the archetypes. As an example, if the world you're playing in has an Egypt or an Egypt-like region, you could make a reasonable argument that you could take the Living Monolith archetype if that's what you want. If there's any region at all that has had some evil, scary wizards hanging around it, from Thay to Mordor, you could make a reasonable case that you should have access to the Rune Scarred archetype. I hope you've enjoyed this short breakdown of how archetypes work in Pathfinder 2nd Edition. If you're interested in more Pathfinder content from 1st or 2nd Edition, check out D6 Damage right here on YouTube. And if you want to take your game further, join the D6 Damage Discord, where we have all kinds of great discussions about character builds, DMing, and much, much more. The link is down in the description.